to the lectern at the moment and give us her story. Thank you so much, Madeleine, for being prepared to come tonight.
Thank you very much. Mine's a story of abortion regret. I accidentally got pregnant at 18, and in the midst of confusion and shock, I chose to have an abortion. But I'm not sure it was choice, to be honest, because no other options were really given me. I wasn't overtly coerced or threatened, but I was certainly not empowered to make an informed decision. When I saw a doctor to have my pregnancy confirmed, I told her that I planned to have an abortion. In that very short appointment, I was given a number to call, but there was no discussion about other options or potential risks. That was not a choice. I was counselled at the clinic on the day of my abortion, asked if I had concerns, but when I expressed fears, I was told they were totally unfounded. I was told the fetus was only a ball of cells, no bigger than the size of half my little fingernail. But that's not true. Several years later, while studying anatomy and physiology, I was shocked to learn that at 8 weeks pregnant when I aborted, the baby would have been 3 centimetres long, and every organ functioning, its heart beating. Therefore, what I was told was wrong, and the discovery horrified me. I've heard other women recall the exact same language used in their pre-abortion counselling. This is not empowered, informed consent, nor unbiased counselling to help women make choices of reproductive freedom. After the abortion, I was given a pamphlet to take home. It said that because of hormones, I may experience several days of heightened emotions, but no further grief. So when I began to feel sadness, I felt I couldn't possibly go to that clinic because there was no room for my experience there. I was disenfranchised, as if my right to experience regret was not permitted. And I suffered years of depression and anxiety and struggled with postnatal depression, struggling to connect with my children who I'd later given birth to. For years, I didn't identify the cause of this distress. I was not counselled well, and I was not prepared for what would come. It wasn't until after I identified the false information I'd been given about physiology that I realised I was also allowed to regret my abortion and to grieve my unborn child. And I do. My mother has also shared that she regrets not encouraging me to keep the baby, but she felt she couldn't speak, that it would be judgmental to express a different opinion. She was there with that doctor, heard no concerns, and suppressed her own questions. She felt she was not free to speak. But when mothers don't feel free to speak openly to their daughters, and professionals cannot be relied upon to speak the truth, vulnerable women like me are at risk of feeling trapped, of experiencing deep regret, and are not free to choose. A friend of mine recently called an adoption hotline for help, but was advised to call back after she'd pursued her termination options. If options are thus channeled away from certain options, the freedom to choose is certainly undermined. This lack of freedom of opinion exists for medical professionals at some times too. I have a close friend who's a midwifery student in Toowoomba. Several months ago at the base hospital, she went with a rostered midwife to help clean an aborted 21-week-old fetus so that his parents could hold him and say goodbye. As she walked into the pan room, she recalls reading "dirty utility" across the door and then seeing a baby in a pan next to a row of bins. And then she heard him gasp for breath. And again, and was deeply distressed by this. He lived for nearly an hour and a half, only she was not allowed to give him any care and had to watch him suffer as he died. She'd just finished a shift caring for premature babies, only a few weeks older than him, in the ward next door. She was told by more experienced midwives that it may be distressing now, but she'd get used to it. She believed she shouldn't share how upset she was, how much sleep she lost replaying those final breaths. She felt her grief was disenfranchised, and were she to be honest about her response to the situation, she would be at risk of losing her job or being sidelined in the workplace. It's not easy to share stories of regret and grief. It's not easy to share my story with you, but it's not a unique story. And yet, you won't hear many others shared in the public domain, and there's a reason for that. I've shared many tears with others who regret, both men and women, young and old, but most feel way too ashamed to openly acknowledge their suffering, or too frightened of the consequences of sharing a socially unacceptable pain. So they feel they cannot bring themselves to share it. But I refuse to let our grief go unheard. I feel personally that moves to legalise abortion in Queensland will lead to more stories of regret and hurt like mine. And for this reason, I can't support it as a good move for our state. I don't believe this kind of legislation really empowers or frees women at all. And if we genuinely care for all Australian women, we need to reconsider the whole issue in a genuine atmosphere of collaboration and truth. And a new law on its own will not resolve it. Thank you.